My name is Julianne Mills, and I am a program manager here at Move United. I'll be your host on today's webinar. This year, with support from the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs, I've been working to support the expansion of wheelchair tennis in the Move United membership network and beyond through training events for coaches and also equipment grants. You can learn more about this at moveunitedsport.org/tennis training. We hosted our first training back in February at the USTA National Campus. Here in this picture is a photo from the group that we were training. Please note, we have had some event cancellations due to the pandemic, and we will be looking to reschedule these at a future date in Virginia and Maine. Today, we will be sharing information about USTA's NetGeneration program as it pertains to wheelchair tennis. We have a great group of speakers on today's call. And with that, I'm going to turn things over to you, Jason.
Well, thank you very much, Julianne. It's been a pleasure working with you. This partnership with Move United has been huge for us, and we really look forward to working with you in the future. Just making sure that you can still see my screen as I'm presenting, right, Julianne?
I can just see you, so you'll have to activate the screen share.
Okay, there we go. Share again. All right.
Good to go.
That should do it. Okay, a pleasant good afternoon to everyone. We're excited that you're going to join us today. We have a lot to talk about, but we want to get through it quickly because we really love to hear from you guys and field any questions you may have. So we're going to kind of run through this stuff pretty fast today. Why are we here? We're going to talk about wheelchair tennis and NetGeneration. NetGeneration is our marquee product that we're presenting from the United States Tennis Association for our youth platform. And there's a lot of amazing things going on in that space. So as we proceed, just quickly want to say who we are. My name is Jason Allen. I'm the manager for wheelchair and technical for the USTA. I oversee all aspects of wheelchair tennis for the United States Tennis Association that deals with grassroots tournaments, rankings. I also serve as team leader for Team USA and the Paralympic Games and the Parapan Games, World Team Cup. I basically do everything that's related to wheelchair tennis except for the professional side. On the professional side of the house is my colleague Jason Harnett, who is our head coach of Team USA. He's been in the sport for almost 25 years, more than 25 years. And he is my mentor and an amazing guy. So if you have any questions about the professional side and how to get on Team USA, feel free to send me an email and I'll get you in contact with Jason. Also extremely happy to have with us today Leah Friedman, colleague of mine at the National Office for United States Tennis Association. She's the national manager for NetGeneration. She oversees the entire youth platform for the country. Big job, and she's doing it really, really well. So happy to have Leah. And then we have Evan Enquist with us today, who is the head coach of wheelchair tennis for the University of Alabama. One of the biggest names in our sport right now, just such a mover and shaker and making so many things happen. So he's going to actually talk to you more in depth about the NetGeneration space, as he is the main coordinator for the NetGeneration regional providers that are out there. So he sort of oversees the whole program as it relates to all the pros out there who are teaching these things. Just in case you don't know, I'm sure most of you do know, the USTA is the national governing body of tennis for America. We are very proud of the fact that we are one of the few national governing bodies that actually absorbed a disabled sport. So the USTA also oversees wheelchair tennis. It oversaw wheelchair tennis starting in 1998. Before that, it was managed for 20 years by the National Foundation of Wheelchair Tennis, and then the national NGB absorbed it, which not too many worldwide NGBs do that. So we like to always promote that. The mission of the USTA is to promote the growth and development of tennis. What is wheelchair tennis? Just so you know, most of you on this call probably are thinking, why are you telling me about this? I know what wheelchair tennis is, but from our perspective, it's always important to dive just a little bit into this, because I need you to understand that from the USTA's perspective, there is a difference between wheelchair tennis and adaptive tennis. Although from the layman's perspective and in the world of education and otherwise, wheelchair tennis would be considered as an adaptive sport. But the USTA is a volunteer-based committee structure organization. We are run by committees. And wheelchair tennis has been around for 40 years. It was invented in 1976 by Brad Parks, more than 40 years. And because of that, there's so much infrastructure for wheelchair tennis. It's the most professional and integrated of all the disabled sports. We have, almost 200 worldwide professional circuit events out there. We play at all 4 Grand Slams. We play at the Paralympics. We have a whole massive amount of infrastructure worldwide. And when you juxtapose wheelchair tennis with adaptive tennis has only kind of been around for 8 to 10 years and doesn't quite have that infrastructure and organization. And there are literally 10 to 15 different pieces of adaptive tennis. You've got standing adaptive, you've got serving kids with autism, you have the Buddy Up program for children with Down syndrome, you've got the cognitive side, you've got the blind, the deaf. You have so many offshoots of what adaptive is. So that's sort of why, as it relates to the United States Tennis Association, there are 2 committees. So there's a USTA Wheelchair Tennis Committee that oversees the sport, and then you have an adaptive committee. The person who oversees adaptive for the USTA, her name is Yasmin Osborne, and I'm happy to get you in contact with her if you're interested in learning more about adaptive tennis. Moving on about wheelchair tennis. What programming do we offer nationwide through the USTA in terms of wheelchair tennis? Well, we offer a lot. We're really proud about what we do. Although I will say we wish we could do a whole lot more, and we work hard to do a whole lot more. But we offer 85 USTA alone tournaments across the country, and we like to really tout that because I know many people have seen the names of the people on this call, and I know that most of you know that we are maybe the only country in the entire world that actually supports recreational play in such a organized way. We have 85 sanctioned tournaments across the country, 12 professional grade tournaments across the country. We have the Wheelchair Tournament Series, which is a 15 to 20 non-sanctioned social events. We have 6 all-comers camps. Anybody that wants to learn and play wheelchair tennis can come to those nationwide. We have junior programming. We have 2 junior camps we run, and we have just tons of programs across the country. Unfortunately, I'll give a quick example, if you live in Colombia in South America, your only pathway to be able to play a organized tournament is to play a professional event. They don't have infrastructure or programming at the national level like we do. So we're very proud about that. We're I think the only country that really does that. So moving right along, I'm now going to turn it over to Leah Friedman, who's going to give everyone an explanation of what exactly is NetGeneration as a whole. Thank you, Leah.
Thanks, Jason. Thanks, Juliana and Krista and everyone on the call. I'm so excited to be here. I love seeing that we have some aspiring coaches on the call and some coaches that are just starting their journey. Jason, we're going to get this. Yep, perfect. We can start there. So, I wanted to start with our overall mission of NetGeneration, and working with the USTA. NetGeneration is the umbrella brand for everything youth tennis from 5 to 18. And our #1 goal is to get more players in the game. And I love talking to coaches because it starts with you. And, it's our responsibility as coaches to empower, to unify, and to really expose kids to play. And we have so much responsibility as coaches getting first timers into the game, but then also keeping them in our pathway. So next slide, please. So I wanted to share, we do have our American development model. I work very closely with the brains behind it. His name's Dr. Carl Davies. We work hand in hand together, but our ADM applies long-term athletic development principles in order to engage players throughout their entire journey. And so we're looking at players from 5 to 95. I one time said that and somebody said, well, what about 105? 105, we want you to play for your entire lifespan. And what I'm so proud about the ADM is that we have included wheelchair and adaptive tennis into this program. And working with both Jasons, we're really proud of the collaboration that we can come together and keep players playing. So next slide, please. So within the ADM, we have 7 core principles. You'll see them on your screen. I've circled fun and athlete-centered because to me as a coach, we have to do what's best for our players. So, you know, no matter who your player is, it's understanding how do they learn and what do we have to do as coaches to engage them. And not all players are learning the same. And I think once we as coaches understand that, we can make sure that we're teaching the players the way that they need to. And that applies to any level player, to any age player. And so I remember, you know, I used to be in the trenches on the court. I was in a private club space first, and then I went into the community in Chicago. But regardless if I have five students on a court or if it was 50 kids in a gym class and me, every child learned differently. And so, you know, I always used to think that kids had a Post-it note on them. And, you know, maybe Jeremiah needed different tips than Susie. And so again, the more we can understand that kids and players of all ages learn differently, we'll do better. So next slide, please. So within the ADM, we have our 5 C's, and you'll see them. It's character, competence, confidence, connection, and creativity. And again, this, you're probably wondering, why am I sharing all this? Well, again, as coaches, we have the responsibility to deliver our lessons, and I don't even like to say lessons, but our practices with this connection and with this idea that we can build confident players both on and off the court. And our study, our insight, and even experience has shown that if we do this correctly, we will have more players playing the game. They're going to play better, and they'll be better athletes and individuals off the court. So again, I used to say I care more about players off the court than I do on the court. And that all starts with trust. And if we can build that trust with our athletes from the first lesson, we'll really see their development, their personal and player development throughout their career. Next slide, please. Jason, we got this down. This is good. So how does NetGeneration apply to the ADM? So we have taken a holistic approach to change, the way that the kids are experiencing tennis. And that includes our curriculum. So we have curriculum for red ball, which if we do have some new coaches on here and you're not familiar, that red ball moves 75% slower than a yellow ball. So we have red ball, orange ball, green ball, and yellow ball curriculum. So no matter where your player is, even if they're an adult player, our curriculum can still apply to adult beginners. I've also had the pleasure and honor of working with some of our adaptive programs that use our curriculum for their adult players. So it's very versatile. Within that curriculum, it's athlete-centered. Again, what do our athletes need to excel? We also want to make sure that no matter what environment our players are engaging in the game, that we keep them safe. So all of our providers on NetGeneration go through background checks and our safe play course. You will never hear us apologize about the time it takes to ensure our kids are safe. We also have digital tools for our coaches. So no matter if you're a certified coach, a volunteer coach, a parent coach, you all matter, and we want to be able to support you with online tools. So we have an app, we have our website, we have videos on both, and then we're also launching a new tennis management system that will allow providers to make their own websites, put up their programs. So there's a lot of exciting things happening in that tech space that again support our coaches to deliver the game. And then lastly on this slide, oh, sorry, but you can leave it. All right, so lastly on this slide too, we do have a competitive NetGeneration pathway where we link our competencies to our tournament structure and our play. So everything's connected now. Good for the next one. So I just wanted to share kind of what our resources look like. And so the big duffel bag in the middle, if you're a community provider, if you're delivering tennis to the community, you're not in a private club, you know, we want to make sure that we have broken every barrier to get into the game. And so I love to say no court, no problem. So you'll see some barrier tape there that you can build courts anywhere. We used to train PE teachers and after school coaches and say, okay, go deliver tennis. Well, how would I do that? I have to find $500 to get in a pack. Well, now we're giving this equipment pack for free. We also have different tools if you're a certified coach. So the certified coach curriculum is just under that duffel bag. If you're running PE, we have a school's curriculum that we wrote with Shape of America. And then the top right is for our team challenge. So first entry to competition, it's very friendly. It's all team aspect, but we have packages to meet you where you are in your journey, along with where your players are. Next slide, please. So just really quickly, I wanted to show you, based on everything we did with our American Development Model and the research, we made sure that all of our resources and all of our tools met what we were being told. So curriculum, training, so online training now, resources for everything that we offer. I mean, it's overload how much we have, but again, we want to make sure that you feel supported. Our website, and then constant communication through newsletters and online and digital support. Next slide. So I would be remiss if I didn't talk about what we've been doing for the last 2 months with NetGeneration and everybody playing at home. So when we all started working from home, we began sending newsletters out every week. So we have 2 different junior pathway newsletters. So we have one just for parent accounts, and we have one also for our accounts that are playing in our competition pathway. So that could look anything from a team competition to tournaments. But what I'm most proud about is that we're making sure that this is inclusive. Again, everything that we're doing is inclusive, and I want you to know that. I mean, I'm only in my job because I believe that we can make our sport more accessible. I want to break every stigma and barrier out there. So know that that goes into everything we do with NetGeneration. So it's play at home activities, it's math and word problems that kids can do at home with families. And then recently, next slide, please. We launched NetGenerationLive. So for the last 4 weeks, I've actually been giving 25-minute lessons from my house. In that picture, I was using an extra room in my house that I use as a gym, but the last couple of weeks, and then last week we went outside, and our viewership has been incredible because we see that not only are kids watching with their parents and families, but programs are starting to do some watch parties. And we take you through a NetGeneration lesson. So it's character development, it's athletic skills. It's really fun. I think I'm getting a workout with it. And what I'm most excited about is this Friday at 1 o'clock. We have 2 of our wheelchair Olympians, Dana and Mackenzie, joining us. And I think it's going to be our best show yet. So Jason, we'll definitely make sure that everybody on this call can get that information. I'll end with this. I mean, the more we work together, the better our sport will be and the better our athletes going forward will be. So hopefully, Jason, you and the community feel like you have our support. I want to do everything in my power to make sure that we're accessible and that we're encouraging play at all levels. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Leah. 100%, we feel like we have your support. You know, we're very lucky to be part of such an amazing national governing body. And because of your support, we've really been making some great strides in wheelchair tennis. So just let me dive into kind of what it is that we do here. We're going to hear from Jodi near the end of this particular part of the presentation about her experience. But basically what we've done as a department is we recognize that NetGeneration is probably the most important product being put out there right now by the USTA. And it was just a no-brainer for us to ride its coattails and do some interesting things within that space. So what we've done is taken all of those resources that they have in NetGeneration, and we adapted all of it to wheelchair tennis. And one of the most amazing parts is the curricula that was developed. So those that may not know me, I used to be a principal and I was a teacher for 13, 14 years and love education. And one of the most difficult parts of education is keeping your students engaged and then also providing personalized learning or differentiation of instruction. And when I had to sit and think about how can we create something to help coaches teach wheelchair tennis, it was very daunting. And then I took one look at the curricula that was developed by the NetGeneration team, and it blew me away in every way. So all I did was took the existing coaches and community curricula And I adapted all of that for wheelchair tennis. And I didn't have to change that much. The only thing that we had to change were some of the athletic development skills. You know, kids in chairs can't jump rope and they can't, you know, skip and hop and run and split step and all those things. So we had to change some of that language. So we really want to hit home today. If you're not a NetGeneration, certified as a NetGeneration provider, we'd love for you to get signed up today. It's a real easy process. You get everything if you do it. You get access to the curricula, you get equipment, you get an awesome marketing generator to help figure out how to market your programs, and so much more videos, instruction videos, and all the stuff that Leah just spoke about. So again, just want to reiterate, being as inclusive as we want to be, the wheelchair tennis department is now just involved in NetGeneration, and we've taken what they do and we've adapted it for our population. And like it says here on this slide, it's just a turnkey program. If you've never even taught tennis before in your life, you read the book and you do what it says and you're in, and it's easy. It's a progression and regression based system. So it starts at red, goes to orange, goes to green. Within those 3 books, within each book, there's progression through communities and through lessons. And even within individual lessons, there's progressions within each individual activity, which allows for a coach to differentiate instruction, number one. But number two, if any of you grew up playing tennis like I did, you stood in a line, you hit one ball, and then you ran to the end of the other line and had to wait until you got to hit another ball again. We don't teach like that anymore. And this curricula is the archetype of that. Every single moment of a class, a child will have a role and they will be 100% engaged. So they have knocked this one out of the park, and it was a no-brainer for us as a department just to try to get involved and adapt what they have. So with that being said, I want to just briefly describe to you what we've done as a department. We recognized about 3 years ago, in looking at data across the board, that out of the 1,200 people that play wheelchair tennis nationwide, we only had about 17 children actually compete in a tournament for a country of more than 350 million inhabitants. That is a problem. I think wheelchair tennis for many, many years has rested on its laurels because we had such a boom 40 years ago. There were only a couple of options for adaptive sports back in those days, and nowadays, everybody has so many options. Everybody's getting their act together. Everybody's realizing that no matter what the curricula is, it can be adapted for anybody that has a need. So what we decided to do as a department was we created a 10-year strategy aligned with the 2028 Paralympics in LA. And in doing so, we created what we call our NetGeneration Wheelchair Tennis National Providers out there. And so that's what this is that you're looking at. So we have 10 to 12 coaches out there providing instruction out in the country, and their main job is to get new programs started, support new people wanting to get into the sport, and get more kids in chairs. One of the strategic things that we did was place a person in charge of this endeavor who sits on our USTA National Wheelchair Tennis Committee. His name is Evan Enquist. He's on the call with us, and I'm now going to turn it over to him to briefly, Evan, because we're kind of getting there, talk about what we're doing in the provider space and how you can be of a resource to those that want to start new programs. Thank you, Evan.
Absolutely, Jason. Thank you so much. And first, just want to take a second to thank Move United for all the amazing resources and all the help that you're providing wheelchair tennis and their growth in this space. I've been involved in some collegiate space as well, and just phenomenal job. And again, thanks, Jason, for bringing me in and letting me help out in this big project. So again, yep, here's your map. And I was looking at the comments and participants. There's people from all over the country. Please take a second to jot down this person's name. They are the expert in your section. They are the resource, and they are put here in this position specifically to serve you as the local providers, running programming in your clubs, your schools, in all the different ways that Leah mentioned as well. So hopefully maybe at the end of this call or with the follow-up, you'll be able to share this contact information with everyone, or at least mine and Jason, so that we can get you in touch with your regional provider. If you want to scoot on to the next slide, Jason. So kind of, yeah, like, just a really brief overview. One of the biggest projects that each of these providers is tasked with is creating a network. being able to connect the regional section to that local tennis pro nonprofit organization that actually works with kids on the regular basis to get them all this amazing curricula, all this amazing information that the USTA has ready, and then all the time that Jason L has spent adapting that curricula to wheelchair tennis players. So creating that network has not been established before that we're working on. The other thing is making sure every local provider like yourself has the right equipment. They're on safe, they've become NetGen certified, safe sport certified, background checks, and they have everything they need. And then of course, the last biggest part is growing the game, getting more kids competing, because that's where really that fun challenge comes in, is when you take it from the practice court to the actual competition court, and then helping new providers. There was 45% of you on this call were aspiring tennis coaches. That's perfect. That's the group we're targeting as well. If you want to scoot next one. So just kind of an overview of what we were able to accomplish last year. We were able to bring wheelchair tennis to almost about 300 kids last year. Vast majority of these junior players were new to wheelchair tennis, so extremely proud of that in our first year. 35 providers that we've identified across the country who are personally on court working with these juniors. And then we're able to train 100 new providers, whether that's through a certification clinic or in the schools, or you're a tennis coach who has an experienced wheelchair. So we were particularly proud of what we were able to accomplish in 2019. And then last, just simply my role specifically is really just to provide support for the project and support for each of these 11 providers. So anything they need, challenges, obstacles, every section is in a little different place in terms of how well they know what's going on wheelchair tennis wise. And some areas are very vast. Many states are included, and they have a lot more work ahead of them in connecting all the different sections. So really simply my role is just to support that. And then of course, talk about how we can move forward once this in the next kind of 6 months, where not a lot of on-court play has been happening. How do we continue for our planning and our growth for this project? And lastly, just this is what we have planned for 2020, which is just some key primary objectives, but between finding the providers, getting everyone certified, and identifying which competition events could have a junior division is huge, specifically since we only have a couple camps over the summer, and we don't have like a large junior national championships where every kid in the country who identifies as a tennis player recreationally or competitively comes together. We don't really have that. So just connecting pieces and getting more events that have 4 or more players that are actually making for points and things in all the different sections is our kind of our goal for 2020. We've moved past identifying the areas. Now how do we get these kids into competition? Thanks.
Excellent. Wonderful presentation, Evan. Thank you so much for all the work you're doing in coordinating all the providers. These 11 providers nationwide have funding that the USTA has provided to them to help you start a new program. And of course, the USTA is a big engine that will help you get started in any way, shape, or form. I think at this point, we want to do the video from Jodi, correct, Julianne?
Yep, I'll tune that up here.
Hello, my name is Jodi Smigelski, and I am the Adaptive Sports Coordinator at Central Florida Dreamplex. Central Florida Dreamplex began in 2015, and they offer programs to both children and adults in traditional therapy, adaptive fitness and sports, rec therapy, and much more. They became a chapter of the Disabled Sports USA, now Move United, in 2018. Our wheelchair tennis program is part of our monthly adaptive sports days held in downtown Orlando, and it's offered in partnership with the USTA National Campus at Lake Nona. We're fortunate to live close, so we were able to get a coach come and be part of our adaptive sports days so the kids could get an introduction into wheelchair tennis. I was hired in January to help build the adaptive sports programs in Central Florida. Just a little of my background, I have my degree in physical therapy, and I've been in adaptive equipment and adaptive sports for the last 20 years. I was also a college tennis player and just have a passion for adaptive sports I started volunteering for Central Florida Dreamplex when they were established in 2015. And recently they were given a grant so that I was hired to come help, to help build the program. Right after I was hired, fortunately, I was given the opportunity to attend a wheelchair tennis clinic from the USTA at Lake Nona and through Disabled Sports USA. And I thought that the program was fantastic. We weren't just taught coaching skills on the courts, but also the background of wheelchair tennis, some of the politics involved. We had pointers on how to best start a program. We had a diverse group of people from different organizations and pulled from their experiences, which was great. And this is where I learned about NetGeneration. And after we were done with the coaching clinic, we can go and you can sign up for this program. I'm currently in the process of signing up, and I'm just waiting for approval as a provider. Once I'm approved, it's a great opportunity. I'll get my program on their website, and we'll also get equipment to get me started. We're hoping to start our program back up in June, just depending on how our phases open in Florida, but that's what we're shooting for. And once we do start our program, my job is also to go out and recruit some new players, try to get more awareness to adaptive sports and wheelchair tennis. And how I plan on doing that is going to do in-services at rehab facilities and some pediatric outpatient clinics. A lot of times people are just not aware of the programs that they have available in their community, especially when they're newly injured and don't think they're thinking about getting back to sports, but it's a great opportunity to go in and just kind of talk to them. And I work a lot with the rec therapists in those programs. So that's how I plan on expanding our wheelchair tennis program and adaptive sports programs. So thank you for your time, and please contact me if you have any questions. Thank you.
All right, wonderful. Jodi was a great addition to our class, and she said it well. We had a lot of diverse people there from all over the country. It was a phenomenal class, and it actually marked a good turn in how we teach our courses. We started our coach development workshops focused on just sort of an overview of wheelchair tennis, but we've realized over the past year that NetGeneration and what they're doing and what we are doing in that space is so awesome that it's both applicable to juniors and adults. So we've completely called an audible and spend about half of our course dealing with just NetGeneration principles and curricula. So thank you once again, Jodi, for your thoughts, and we're glad you were able to make it. With that being said, Julianne, I think we're ready to maybe just take a few questions. I've seen a couple here in the chat box. Would you like me to start with those?
Yeah, so we had a question come in from Cameron Lewis, and they're asking about their program in Bowling Green, Kentucky is registered with NetGeneration and focused on wheelchair tennis. In the marketing generator, there are no pictures of wheelchair athletes. Are there plans to add these in the future so that marketing can be done to that target population?
Yeah, Cameron, it's great to hear from you. Cameron's doing a great job over there in Bowling Green. There are definitely photos in there. If you check now, you'll see them. I think they were added a few months ago before COVID-19 hit. So you should have about between 5 and 8 good pictures there for wheelchair tennis athletes now to add under the flyers for the marketing generator. Thank you for that question.
Great. Yeah, and that's a good consideration too that you bring up, Cameron, when you are marketing programs to athletes with disabilities, to make sure that they are represented in your imagery. And for tennis and for other sports, if you need support in that area, feel free to reach out to Move United too, and we can see if we can help you out with some marketing resources. Let's see, we have another question coming in. Do you have advice for someone that's interested in becoming a wheelchair tennis player later in life?
Oh, absolutely. Just email me and I'll get you set up with the right person in your area. There's there's a great website that we have on USTA.com that's called Wheelchair Tennis Programs Across the Country. And you'll be able to see in your area of the country where there's programs. And if there's not, then we'll get you hooked up with your USTA representative in your section and get you started. But absolutely, we have people starting the sport all the time. Thank you.
Okay. And I'd encourage the audience too, if you have any other questions that are on your mind for our various panelists here, feel free to drop those into the Q&A feature. Let's see, we have another question that's come in with respect to the pandemic and some looking for some resources and advice around that. Can you speak to what USTA has offered so far as guidance for reopening?
Sure. I'm probably going to let Leah field the majority of this question, but just know that for the wheelchair tennis specific space on the NetGeneration.com website, if you sign up to become a NetGeneration provider, you now have access to that wheelchair tennis curricula that will absolutely show you what you can do at home to work with anyone. And just, going on what Leah said earlier, you can set up a court anywhere. But, the USTA has done a lot in terms of recommendations. I'm going to turn it over now to Leah to finish that question.
No, thank you. That's a great question. So on tennisindustryunited.com, all the major players within the tennis industry have come together to support our coaches. So if you're a coach and looking for information, that's your website. So again, it's tennisindustryunited.com, and it has resources including webinars, podcasts, articles, all the financial grants that are available right now. It is really your one-stop shop. And then from there, you can explore. So if you're a coach looking for play-at-home activities, you can definitely get to all of our resources through that website. But if you go to USTA.com, you'll see a play-at-home tab. So we're making sure that we have resources for the coaches, but then also to keep everybody healthy and moving during this time.
Yeah, and I would also add, with respect to wheelchair tennis or just anyone using a wheelchair, there are also some unique considerations for hand hygiene and also being mindful about making sure that your wheelchair is sanitized frequently. And we have some guidance around that I'll be sharing with you all in the follow-up email as a resource.
Yeah, we were asked as well. We all got together as national staff to figure out in each one of our particular spaces what our recommendation would be for safe return to play. And obviously, we don't want to differentiate too much. A wheelchair tennis athlete's not too dissimilar from an able-bodied athlete in of the fact that, if they're using their push rim to move their wheelchair, they'll probably be okay. But if you end up touching the tire may be going across unsanitized surfaces. So you would really be doing nothing different than your able-bodied counterparts, except for just maybe being more cautious. Julianne, I saw a good question here in the chat area. Can I answer this one as well about court construction? So somebody asked, Jim asked about court construction. That's a good question. Two things on that. Number one, the USTA supports new facility construction with the new facility manual, and that manual does have wheelchair tennis specifics in it for the construction of a brand new club. But I wanted to highlight once again what Leah mentioned earlier in the Net Generation space with all the curricula. It absolutely shows you how to create a court anywhere. It tells you the dimensions of the court that's appropriate for the age level of the player or ability level, 36 feet court, 60 feet court, or a 78 feet court. So absolutely, you've got, if you're talking new facility construction, USTA.com is going to have that. And if it's Net Generation, just throwing a courts down somewhere to get somebody started playing, that's all in the Net Generation space as well.
Yeah, I think the barrier tape that's included in that Net Generation kit is really great, especially now when a lot of people are doing tennis at home. There's some creative ways you can use that on your driveway or wherever you have some space to play.
But Julian, on that point, because I don't have barrier tape at my house, right? And I don't have throwdown lines. I don't have a net. So for everything I've been doing at my house, been using beach chairs. I've been using jump ropes, a swimming noodle. I mean, a vacuum cleaner. So I don't want people to think, oh, I need the barrier tape. No, do whatever, use whatever you have. And the video that we like on netgeneration.com, we use even a little kid's like Batmobile. So the more creative you can get at home, the better off it is. And then you make your own rules for the game. I mean, who doesn't like to own the game in the way that they built their court? So I want people to think outside the box when it comes to making the courts.
Yeah, definitely. That's good advice.
Thanks.
Sure, and I was going to say for Central Florida Dreamplex, we play inside of a gym. So the only facility that we can have right now is inside a gym at a church. So we just make it work. We have some nets that we have, and then we just take things off, and the kids really have a great time.
And Jason, Jason, the court construction resource that you mentioned, is that freely available online? Okay.
There's a whole department that exists in the USTA called facilities, and their main job is to help construction of brand new facilities to make sure the courts are properly built with the correct specifications, and all of that has wheelchair tennis considerations to take into account.
Great. And we just had a couple more questions come in. This question is from Jenna. She's asking if the Net Generation bundle includes all levels of tennis balls, and is there enough equipment provided for an entire program?
So Jenna, great question. We do not do bundles with yellow balls or green balls currently. We have red and orange balls. The PE kit has the most rackets. It has 30 rackets in it, and then the community kit has 20 rackets in it. But we know that there are groups larger than that. So a lot of our programming talks about rotations of rackets and how to move equipment around. I'm also a big believer that not everybody needs a racket either when you start for safety concerns. So I used to be in Chicago. I used to have 100 kids in PE classes in Chicago public schools. And so by splitting up the equipment, splitting up responsibilities among the students, it kept everybody engaged, and it also kept a safe environment. I do want to say that we have paused on the equipment kits right now, just during COVID and during our time off. So that will come back up. So Jodi, I know you said you were waiting for your equipment kit. We'll definitely be communicating everything about that. But there are different kits depending on what you are doing. And we can work with you, Jenna, on making sure that you have the best kit for your program.
Yeah, so Jenna had noted that she oversees a youth club. And she's also interested in hearing more about this small court adaptation.
Yeah, so Jenna, please feel free. One, I think you're going to get my contact information after, but we can definitely direct you to your local person. But everything is on netgeneration.com. The smallest court size right now for youth play is a 36-foot court by 18 feet wide. I don't even like to use that when I'm first starting players out. I like to just have kids make smaller boxes, not even using lines. So I could talk about this forever. We would be on the call for another hour talking about how to adapt space. Because like Jodi, I love playing in gyms or churches or the street. Like I said, I've been playing from my house. So Jenna, your best bet is to go to netgeneration.com. We have the resources, and then reach out to Jason and I, and we'll take care of you.
Great, thank you, Leah. And we just had a question come in from Linda. Maybe I can put this one back to you, Jason. Do you have suggestions for players with other disabilities that would not be playing in a wheelchair? Where would you direct them to play?
Absolutely. As I mentioned earlier, Yasmin Osborne oversees adaptive tennis for the USTA and has a lot going on in that space. And I'm happy to connect you with her. If you just email me, I'll do an e-introduction and get you going.
Great, thanks for that. Let's see, and Evan, I haven't seen any questions come in for you, but I was actually curious myself kind of where things are at, how college tennis is being affected right now or potentially in the fall. What information can you share with students at this time?
Sure. As of now, the season was cut short, just like every other graduating spring athlete. But we are moving forward next year with planning on the collegiate national championships. We've seen growth from 5 teams in the past couple of years to 7, and then we had somewhere close to about 15 schools that were interested in attending. So we've doubled, almost tripled our interest in collegiate wheelchair tennis, which will feed perfectly from this junior space into the college space. So yeah, I mean, not a lot of information to share other than we're moving full steam ahead, trying to provide more resources to college programs who are interested in learning. We've actually released a couple webinars on how to grow a collegiate wheelchair tennis program, the steps, why you would do it, and that's all on the player development website.
Okay, great.
And I did want to add one thing in relation to the regional providers, and that is, we feel 100% confident that with the curricula, with this equipment, or a modification of whatever equipment you have, you could run a successful program. But it is actually a main job of the providers that we mentioned, the 11 across the country, that if you really want, if you're a teaching pro and you want someone to come in, you want that individual to come into your club and kind of give you a crash course, teach your providers how to coach wheelchair tennis and the ins and outs. That is definitely a part of their role. So they would love to come and do that at any space, or it's just maybe a nonprofit, you have a bunch of athletes, but tennis isn't one of your sports. They would love to come in and do that with the intention of, after they leave, your coaches are trained. They could do a clinic with some of your juniors to get some hands-on experience, and then your program will be successful there on out.
Excellent. Thanks for that tip, Evan.
Yeah, I really appreciate that, Evan. I just can't speak enough about how amazing it is as an opportunity to play wheelchair tennis. It is, you have the ability to start from the bottom and all the way to becoming a Wimbledon champion and making hundreds of $1,000s a year as a professional tennis player. And there's no other disabled sport out there in which you could do that. It is a tough sport to play. It definitely is tough, and it requires a lot of dedication. But with the Net Generation model and the curricula, and with the transition equipment, the smaller court size, smaller rackets, we are now able to get kids feeling like they're having immediate success a lot sooner. Whereas, if you guys can all relate to this, when I was a kid growing up, 10 years old, I had a full-size wooden racket and a yellow ball. I spent more time running after the ball than I did hitting it. And that's just not the case anymore. With the amazing work the Net Generation's done, we get kids out there, we know they're going to have a great time, they're going to have a lot of success, and they have a chance to really go really far in this sport, and it's just an amazing thing.
And Jason, another question came in here. Is it common for wheelchair tennis and adaptive tennis to have combined sessions? Do you have any suggestions for how to make this easier for both sides to learn together?
Well, this anonymous attendee really opened a big can of worms. This, of course, is a touchy subject, I think, with everyone. The quick answer to that is I have never, in my entire time being in this job, ever turned a child away, ever, and never will. Anybody who wants to come out and play will play. What I have learned, though, when you're juxtaposing wheelchair tennis with adaptive tennis, is that the community of wheelchair tennis players can get very easily offended if they are grouped in with people who may have cognitive issues. And you see that happening still a lot around the world when Paralympic athletes get questioned about what they do, and reporters or people that may not know ask them things such as, how does it feel to be a Special Olympian? And they'll quickly correct them and say, hey, I'm not a Special Olympian, I'm a Paralympian. So what I found in my time in this sport is, absolutely, from a child's perspective, anybody who wants to come in and play, and you can differentiate instruction and never turn anybody away, but you must be cognizant of the fact that your athlete or the parents of that child may or may not have an issue with them being lumped in with children that may have cognitive disabilities. So just be aware of that. Of course, I have a program that we run here at the national campus. I've got about 16 people, and I'd say 20% probably have some cognitive issues, but I don't turn them away. And you just have to spend more time with them. And Obviously we all understand that when there's less cognition, it greatly affects motor skills. And so you just have to work with them more in developing those hand-eye coordination activities, which again, NetGeneration knocks it out of the park with those types of skills and developing those types of hand-eye coordination skills. So I hope that was an adequate answer, Julianne.
Yeah, and I think it speaks to how much we want people to be able to play together and finding ways to help bring people together, because even if you're playing at different levels, we can all learn from one another and help build community in those ways. So we just have a few minutes left here. I want to thank you all again for being here to help share this information about NetGeneration and hopefully send people on their way to get involved in that. The great thing is that you can get involved right away. So even if you're staying home right now, there's ways to start this online and at your own pace. Also, a question came in about the next coaching certification course, and at least for the two remaining courses that we're rescheduling with Move United, they will not occur any earlier than this fall. It could potentially be next year. So we will keep you apprised of those plans. And Jason, I don't know if you can speak any differently about other trainings that you may have in the pipeline, or if we're all in a similar boat here.
Yeah, it's a tough time for everybody. We had 2 scheduled with the thoughts of adding 3 to 5 more physical trainings, or what we call them coach development workshops. Right now, I'm in talks with Jason Harnett and developing a new online module that will be, and I've spoken with you about that, Julianne, as well. Obviously, one of the big pieces of training these workshops is the on-court experience. So it's probably just going to be the classroom portion, learning more about disability, learning more about Paralympic movement, the chair setup, things like that. But yeah, we've got something in the pipeline. And I'll briefly, I know we're coming to the end. I do want to highlight something that's important for people to know that if they're not in the tennis industry, is that there are 2 certifying organizations that exist out there. The USTA is not in the business of certifying tennis professionals and tennis coaches. We are the national governing body, and what we do is oversee the education by accrediting the 2 organizations that do provide coach certification, which is the United States Professional Tennis Association, or the USPTA, and then the PTR, which is the Professional Tennis Registry. I know that I've seen some people on this webinar that I know are already certified in one of those 2. So be looking for more information from those 2 particular sources for any coach development workshops as well.
Great. And with that, I'm going to plug one last thing on behalf of Move United here. And we will be sending out a follow-up email, as I said, with a link to today's recording, including closed captioning and some other resources that we discussed today. And I would also ask you to take a few moments to complete a survey. Let us know what you thought of today's webinar. That will pop up when you close out of Zoom and be included in the email as well. And I also want to encourage you to show us some love on social, especially if something in today's webinar really resonated with you. This is a great way to share the message of inclusion with others in your network and let them know how you're working to be inclusive with your programs. Move United has a AdaptAtHome initiative, and we like to see how you all are adapting at home. So when you post on social, make sure to use the hashtag AdaptAtHome and tag us on whatever platform you prefer to use. And visit our website to check out hundreds of workouts. We have live stream options, on demand, things that you can do at home to stay fit, get active, or try something new. And the USPTA Tennis at Home resources are great as well. So definitely tune into that session on Friday. We had a great Instagram live. Maybe some of you caught that with Shelby Barron last month. She did a really great job leading that workout. I also wanted to show you a recent post from one of our board members, Will Reynolds. He recently took on the Roger Federer challenge here.
Hey Roger, you've been known to do some warm-ups in some unique areas. I've been forced to adapt at home and build this wall in my backyard so that I can continue to stay sharp. And did you know that Move United has a big movement so everyone can adapt at home? Move United is a merger of Disabled Sports USA and Adaptive Sports USA, where they provide instruction of wheelchair tennis, one of the largest adaptive sports in all of our chapters all across the country. So I am going to attempt to get closer to attempt this drill like you do in your videos as we continue to adapt at home. Roger, over to you. Looking forward to your support.
So we still haven't heard from Roger yet, but we're not giving up hope. So whether you're taking the Roger Federer challenge at home or finding some other way to stay active, let us know about it. Thank you all again for being here, and we look forward to catching you at our next webinar.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.